There you go. Thank you, Rachel. I think I'm good to go. First off, I'd like to thank you, everybody, for being here. Like Rachel said, my name is Tom Devine. I'm the livestock agent in McDowell County. I see a lot of unfamiliar faces, so that's really good. I'm glad to see a lot of people interested in livestock judging and wanting to get involved with it. So that's really good. Today we're going to talk about, you probably already know this, but we're going to talk about how we evaluate hogs, market hogs and breeding gilts. All right. No matter what your experience level is, I think we have a really good program today. If you're brand new, that's great. If you've been doing it for 10 years, that's great too. If you've been doing it for 10 years, some of it's going to be pretty basic to you, and you may have already heard it 100 times. But like I tell my teams all the time, if we don't know the basics and the fundamentals of livestock judging, we can never be successful. Okay, even some of my team members who've judged for 10 years still forget the fundamentals sometimes, so we have to refresh. But glad y'all are here. I'll go ahead so I don't take up too much of your time because I'm probably going to go over. I'm probably going to go over, I think, what was it, 2 hours or so. Well, we might go over. So I'll just go ahead and get started. Go ahead and figure out how to share my screen real quick. Bear with me just a second while I get set up here. There we go. Can everybody see this all right? If you can see it, give me a thumbs up. Can you hear me okay? I guess I should ask that first. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Be sure to stop me at any time. If you have any questions, make sure you stop me and let me know. Okay, I don't want to leave anybody out. They might have some questions. And if for some reason my audio or the videos that we see here in just a little bit, if they're not coming through on your screen the best, let me know, and we'll try to work around that. All right. So like I said, we're going to talk about market hog and breeding gilt evaluation today. All right. And there's a few things, pretty much two things you just have to know if you want to be successful with livestock judging. If you want to compete at the state contest, there's a few things two main things that you really need to know about and understand to be successful. And specifically with hogs, first thing you need to know is just the body parts of the pig. Okay, if you have just started, this may look strange to you. Okay, but you need to know all these body parts and where they're located, and the correct terminology, and the correct location for these. You can find diagrams like this about anywhere. Nationalwestern.com, they have a good one. I like seeing them on actual animals instead of just a picture or a drawn picture of a pig. I like to see the actual labels on an actual pig. So I really like this one here. If you don't know the body parts, you don't know where they're located, I highly suggest finding a good diagram and study it and memorize it. All right. The next thing that we need to know, not only for hogs, but just any species, if you want to be successful with livestock judging, is just know what livestock judging is. Okay. Some people, you ask, what is livestock judging? And they'll tell you, well, it's where we take and we judge 4 animals and we put them in order from best to worst. Okay. Well, that's true to an extent, and it's not 100% true, because that's what we do at a livestock judging contest. Okay, we had to back up from that and talk about what livestock judging actually is, and not just a contest. Okay, so the other day I sat down with my group, my judging team, and we talked about what is livestock judging. And we kind of come up with this more basic definition of livestock judging. You can look it up. You can Google, what is livestock judging, and you may find some really in-depth and really hard to understand definitions of livestock judging. But this is what we kind of put together. We came up with our definition of livestock judging, and that's this is. Livestock judging is deciding how good or bad an animal is. Okay, doesn't matter what kind of animal, pig, sheep, goat, cattle, whatever. We're deciding how good or bad it is by comparing what it looks like, what its characteristics are, to the characteristics of the ideal animal, or the characteristics, what the best animal looks like, or the ideal animal looks like. Okay. And we can use these principles for anything, okay? Like what the ideal pencil is, okay? This is something, we can do with pencils, we can do with hats, soft drinks, whatever you want to evaluate, we can use these principles to do that, all right? And so here's what, in my opinion, and what most people would say the traits or the characteristics of an ideal pencil should be, or what an ideal pencil would look like. All right. For one, first off, most important thing about a pencil, it needs to be sharp. Everybody agree with that? It needs to be sharp. If it's not sharp, it doesn't have a good lead to it, we can't write anything. Okay, that's what a pencil's for writing. Right. So most important thing, it needs to be sharp. Next thing, we need a good eraser. Okay. And it also needs to be long enough to hold. I have really big hands, and if it was a really short pencil, I don't know if I could write with it. All right. And then some of the lesser important things, we don't want there to be teeth marks all over it. We don't want to write with a pencil. We don't want to hold a pencil that somebody's had in their mouth and was chewed all over it. Okay. We don't want that. But if it did have some teeth marks, but it was still sharp and had a good eraser and long enough, we could still write with it. So that's why it's a little less important. And then, the least important is the color. Okay. For me, the ideal pencil would be yellow. Okay. The traditional yellow pencil with a red eraser, the one that you see here on the screen now. Okay, that's the least important. Okay, we can still write with it, we can still erase with it, and if it was a pink pencil or green pencil, doesn't matter the color. But for me, I like the traditional yellow pencil with a red eraser. Okay, that's why that's the least important. All right, and so we can then determine how good our pencil is, or bad our pencil is, by asking ourselves the questions. So if does anybody have a pencil in front of them? Okay, an old wood pencil, doesn't matter if it's what color it is, doesn't matter what shape it is.
Henry, do you have a pencil?
You have a a pencil in front of you, I want you to grab that pencil and ask yourself these questions. If you don't have a pencil in front of you, you can use this one that's on the screen here. All right. Ask yourself, is it sharp? Look at the point of your pencil or the pencil that's on the screen now, and see if it's. Do you think it's sharp? Is your pencil sharp or is it dull? Okay. You can ask yourself those questions, and you can ask them to yourself, and you don't have to say them out loud, but ask those questions to yourself, and then we'll come back and we'll decide how good or bad your pencil is. All right. So, does it have a good eraser? I'm asking myself these questions about this pencil that's on the screen. So you can do the same with yours or this one on the screen. Is it long enough to hold? Can you hold it good? Okay. Does it have teeth marks? Somebody been chewing on your pencil, or is it good? No teeth marks. And what color is it? Is it yellow? For me, again, the ideal color for a pencil is yellow. Okay, so put all that together, and we'll talk about this pencil that's on the screen here. We ask ourselves, is it sharp? Anybody want to tell me, do they think this pencil is sharp, or is it dull?
Sharp.
Yeah, it's pretty sharp. All right. Does it have a good eraser? Anybody else want to tell me? No, it doesn't have an eraser at all. Okay, so that's not good. All right, is it long enough to hold, get a good grip on?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, pretty long. Does it have teeth marks? Somebody been biting on this pencil?
No.
It might be a little hard to see, but there's actually a couple teeth marks in there. So it does have a few bite marks, and we can all see that it is yellow. So do we think this is a good pencil, a bad pencil, or just a decent pencil, an okay pencil?
Decent.
Good job. I think that's just a decent pencil. We can still write with it. Hopefully we don't make any mistakes and have to erase, but I think it's a decent pencil. Okay. So you might be asking yourself, what does this have to do with livestock judging? Okay. Like I said earlier, you can apply these principles to anything. Pencils, hats, whatever. You can also apply them to market hogs. All right. These are the characteristics of the ideal market hog. If you go back to this slide, it looks a whole lot like this. Okay. Most important thing, an ideal market hog should be heavy muscled and wide. Okay. Why do we want them heavy muscled? Anybody want to tell me?
Because that's what's going to go to the slaughterhouse and you want a lot of meat off of it.
Yeah, that's what we're going to eat. So we want a lot of meat. Okay. We want them to be lean. Okay. Lean means not having too much fat on them. All right. Does anybody like eating pork chops and then come across a big hunk of fat and try to eat the big hunk of fat?
I don't like pork chops.
Me personally, I don't like eating fat on either pork chops or steaks. Okay, I like them to, be as free of big hunks of fat as possible. Okay, we want them to be heavyweight. We want them to have a big center body. Okay, an ideal market hog sure has all of these characteristics. Okay, they're big. They have a big center body. They're structurally correct, and then they're good designed. Okay, good design. Does anybody know what design means? Just basic terms, design. This is a species-specific term for pigs. When we only use this term in pigs, design. It's pretty much how good looking they are, their attractiveness, their eye appeal, how good looking they are. All right. So
Can you leave
see,
it on that side for a little while?
yeah. And you can see we have this as the least important because just like the color of the pencil, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the color of the pencil. Doesn't matter how good looking the pencil is. Okay. We can still use the pencil if it has all the other things. Okay, so we put these in the order of importance. They need to be heavy muscled and wide, lean, heavy weight, have a big center body, and be structurally correct. And good design. If y'all want these slides, I'll send these to Brent or Rachel, and they could probably get them out to you. So if you're trying to take notes, you can continue taking notes, but I'll try to get these out to you so you can have them in case you miss some. All right. Go ahead and move on real quick. Here's just another way of putting it. You know, what makes an ideal market hog? Okay, to have an ideal market hog, or a market hog to be ideal, they need to have some carcass value. Okay, carcass value. That's what, you know, goes to the consumer. The carcass, the meat, the muscle, whatever you want to call it. It's what we eat. So they need to have some carcass value. And within carcass value, we have muscle, finish, or leanness. Pigs, we like them to be a little leaner, not have too much fat on them, and they need to be heavy weight. All right. They need to be heavy muscled and lean, because that's what sets our base price for our market hogs. Okay. You know, a lot of people think that the only way you make money on your pigs or any other animal in that matter is by weight. Okay. Weight is not necessarily the only thing that we get paid off of. Okay. Muscle and finish and market hogs set the base price for those market hogs. And what I mean by a base price is, say we have someone will pay us $1 a pound for lean, heavy muscled pigs. They'll pay us 50 cents a pound for fat, light muscled pigs. Okay, that's the base price. If they're fat and light muscled, they're only going to give us 50 cents a pound. If they're lean and heavy muscled, they'll give us $1 a pound. So we then take that base price and then we multiply it by weight. Okay, so that we have a 100-pound heavy muscled lean pig that we get $1 a pound for, and a fat light muscled pig that we get 50 cents a pound for. They end up being the same price, because 100 pounds times $1 is $100. 50 cents times 200 is 100. So we get the same $100 for either pig. All right. So I said all of that to say this. Just always remember that bigger is not always better when we're talking about market hogs or in livestock judging. All right. They also need to have some production value. And production value is skeletal width, body volume, or their center body dimension, and their structural correctness. All right. Anybody know why? Well, I gave it away right there. Why width is so important. Okay. Width is important in our market animals, not only hogs, because the wider they are, the more muscle they can hold. All right. So typically, the wider the animal is, the heavier muscled the animal is going to be. All right. It doesn't always happen that way, but for the most part, majority of the time, that's the way it happens. The wider they are, the heavier muscled they are. All right. Body volume. Why do you think body volume is important? Anybody want to tell me? Why is it important for them to have a big belly?
Because that's where your bacon's coming from.
That is true. That is true. But I'm looking for something a little more, basic, I guess. Do what?
Room for their babies.
Well, in our market hogs, we're not dealing with babies. Okay, so we're talking about market hogs that are only raised for meat. So I'll go ahead and tell you it's for growth. Okay, the bigger the belly, the more they can eat, the better they can grow, the more weight they can put on. All right. There's also some research that shows that in our livestock, we can take and measure right behind their shoulder or their forerib with a tape measure, and that number can give us an indication of how well that animal is going to grow. Okay, so body volume is very important for growth, not only because they can eat more, but also there's some that research I was just talking about showing that, you know, the bigger their forearm or forerib measurement, the easier they can grow. What do you think structural correctness is important for? Why, if I've always heard people say, well, we don't eat their bones, we don't eat their joints.
So they can carry their hog.
Why do we need to have structurally correct market hogs?
That's so they can go to their water trough and eat their food.
That's exactly right. Okay. Growth. Okay. Same thing. I was getting ready to say that. They could, if they're structurally correct, they can get up, move around a whole lot easier, and go to their water bowl or their feed trough, whatever it is that they're going to, a lot easier, and they can grow better. If they're really bad structured, sometimes the structural issues that some of these animals have, it hurts them to move. So they're just going to lay around and not get up and move and eat as frequently as they need to grow real well. Okay, because it just hurts them to get up. If they're structurally correct, they're going to be able to get up and move a whole lot easier. They're going to eat more frequent. Okay, makes them grow a lot better. Okay, and the last thing, I wasn't. This one's way down the list. Okay, this is not even compared. Does not even compare to the two above it. Okay, eye appeal, or some people like to refer to this as show ring value. Okay, but just means eye appeal, how good looking they are. Okay, if we have two market hogs in a class, they both have carcass value and they both have production value, then we can come down here and place them off of eye appeal. Okay, how good looking they are. But they must have these two things first before we ever consider placing them off of how good looking they are. Okay, so when we're evaluating muscle and width in market hogs, and really any form of livestock, we're going to start at the ground. Okay, we're going to look at it at the ground, and by at the ground, I mean where their feet are touching the ground. Okay, and we're going to look at the width, the distance between their legs. All right, we want them to be really wide at the ground, wide based, wide at the ground. Our pigs, we're going to move on up into their chest floor. This is a place that I like to look for width and muscle in pigs next, because it's right up there, starting from the ground up, going up, we run into their chest floor, and that's where their legs, their front legs come out of their body. All right, that between their front legs is called their chest floor, and we want to see a lot of width there. All right, we also look in their forearm. We can see their forearm from the front, rear, and the side, but we want to see a lot of muscle and a lot of muscle shape there. We want to look at their shoulder or their blade, and we want to see a lot of width and boldness there, a lot of muscle there. We look through their center body for extra width. All right, we look down their top for width and muscle shape. We look at their hip. Okay, we look at their hip. We want a lot of width and squareness and muscle shape there, and then also in their ham. Okay, right there in their ham is very, very important to determine how much muscle a pig has. All right, I put down here at the bottom a little hint. We're going to look at their feet. We're going to look at their bone size, and we're going to look at their skull or their head, okay, to see how stout boned and how stout skulled they are. Okay. Typically, the bigger footed, heavier boned, stouter skulled pigs are going to be wider and heavier muscled. Okay. Typically, don't always happen that way, but for the majority, that's what happens. You know, bigger foot, bigger bone, stouter skull. They're typically wider and heavier muscled. What I mean by being stout skulled is pretty much just the width between their eyes. All right, width between their eyes. We'll see how stout skulled they are. Okay. Comparing these two pigs, we'll see the one on the left. We don't like that. Okay, at the ground, this pig on the right is a lot wider. Up in its hip is a lot wider and bigger. The ham has a lot more shape and turn and fullness to it. We also see a lot of expression and width right there in the ham-loin junction. Right there in their shoulder, their blade is a lot bigger and more expressive. We see a good groove down their top. This is their loin, their loin muscle coming up. Their spine is right here in the middle, and there's a lot of muscle on each side of the spine, creating a good, what we call the butterfly shaped top. All right. We want to see a good square, crisp shape to the loin there. You can see this pig, his just kind of rounds, kind of flattens and just kind of rounds off. This one actually comes up and then has a good crisp turn to the loin edge. All right. So look at these, just big picture. This is what we like over here on the right. This is what we don't like over here on the right. Okay. Now, when we're talking about leanness or fat in our market hogs, there's a lot, we look for some of the same things as we do with muscle. Okay. And, but before we get started in some of those similarities, we want to look there in their elbow pocket and their shoulder blade or their blade. Okay. We want to see that elbow pocket. We want to see that elbow working. We want to see the blade working, see some blade action. When they get really fat, you won't see the shoulder blade moving. We won't, that elbow pocket will just get filled in with fat. We want to see that good groove down their top. Okay. They can be really heavy muscled, but not have this shape because they've got really fat and it just fills in with fat and it's flat and smooth across their top. We want to see that butterfly shape all the way down their top, that groove from their behind their shoulder blades to their hip. We want to see a dimple right above their tail. If anybody's ever looked at a golf ball and see all the little dents in the golf ball, that's exactly the same thing. It's the dimples in the golf ball. Well, we want to see a dimple, a little dent right there above their tail. The seam of their ham, we want to see a good crease there. All right. We want to see a good clean jowl, good clean underline, and then just a good overall meat animal shape. You can see this shape or the hourglass shape right here where number 7 is. You see their shoulders are here. They come back in just a little bit and they come out to their hip and their ham. All right. Once all of this, if they get really fat, all of this becomes good and smooth. We don't see the creases. We don't see the butterfly shape. We don't see that indentation right there. We won't see this muscle shape from the side. Okay.
It has that ridge down the middle of his back. That's what he's talking about. When you look down and you see it goes in like a little ditch.
You don't want it like that?
You do want it like that.
Yeah. We want to see this little, let me put it in good terms there, just a ditch, just a little groove all the way down their top. Okay, that's good. All right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What does the dimple above the tail have to do with anything? Why is that important?
If they're really fat, this will be smooth. There won't be a dimple there. That's just the anatomy of a hog. They have a little dimple right above their muscle that surrounds this little dimple right here. And so if they get really fat, that'll just be smooth. You won't see a little dimple anymore. So it's just an indicator of the amount of fat they may have. Because if that's filled in and there's not a dimple anymore, then they're probably getting pretty fat.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep, not a problem. All right, so when we're evaluating leanness, we can look at them from the rear, from the front, from the side. All right, so we're going to talk about a couple different views, trying to determine if they're fat. And then we're also going to talk about the different degrees of finish. Okay, and there's 3 main degrees of finish. We have these that are really lean and shapely, ones that we call high cutability. All right, cutability just means, pretty much basic terms, their muscle to fat ratio. How much muscle do they have in relation to how much fat they have. All right, then we have our number 2, okay, down here. These are ones that they're a little fat, they're a little waisty, but they still have a lot of muscle shape. Okay, those are acceptable. Those are good type of pigs. They're a little bit fat. You can see in this one's jowl. Okay, getting a little fat. Don't see as much muscle shape right there, but you still see some. Okay, that's up here. You see a bunch of muscle shape. This one not as much. And then we have these that are really fat with no muscle shape. You can see there's no muscle shape there. The jowl really, really waisty. Okay, and then you have these that are the elbow pockets just filled in with fat. All right. So we want these up here, number 1. Number 3, we try to stay away from them. And so when we look at them from behind, we're still looking for muscle shape, pretty much. Okay, we want to see this hourglass shape like this pig on the left has. It's a good meat animal shape. He's got a lot of muscle and he's pretty lean. Okay, when we talk about, you may hear the term meat animal shape, and that's pretty much if you hear that term, that's what we're pretty much talking about. It's just the amount of muscle shape they have in relation to the fat that they have. Okay, so this has got a good meat animal shape, got a lot of muscle, pretty lean, got a lot of expression of muscle. All right, this pig here in the middle, he's starting to get pretty fat, and he pretty much is the wrong way that we want him to be shaped. Okay, he's almost wider up in his shoulders than he is in his hip and ham, and that's not what we want. You don't see the indentation right there behind his shoulders anymore, and he's wider up front than he is in the back. Okay, this one here on the right, he's about the same width all the way back, except but he's just filled all of his grooves and creases in with fat, and he's just getting really smooth. You can see a little bit of a groove, but he's just getting pretty fat as well. All right, so we want this one here on the left. We like that shape. It's a good meat animal shape. One in the middle, not so much, and the one there on the right, we don't really like those either. Okay, getting a little too fat. All right, body volume or center body. We not only look for depth and length, but we also look for width through their center body. All right. The one here hit on the left on the bottom, the one with that we don't like it because it's too shallow. Not only too shallow right here in the middle, but also in the flank. The deepest part of it is his chest. Okay. It cuts up in his flanks, really dry and hard in his flank, really shallow body. Okay. This one here in the middle, we like that one's width through its center body. It's really opened up in its center body. Okay. This one over here, it's a little bit narrow, a little bit closed up through its center body. Got a lot of muscle, a lot of shape. It's just not as pulled apart through his center body as we would like to see. All right. It's hard to really evaluate structural correctness on pictures and videos. Well, it's a lot easier to do it on videos, but pictures is, it's, you know, a little bit more difficult in pigs because, you know, we can look at the angles of the joints and bones and how they're put together, and they could move completely different than what we think they're going to by how their joints are aligned, okay, and their bones are aligned, all right. But in pigs, we kind of break those into the upper skeleton and the lower skeleton, okay. When we're evaluating structural correctness in pigs in the lower skeleton, we look at their pastern, okay. We want a good ideal softness to the pastern. We don't want them to be too weak, but we don't want them to be too straight either. We want a backward set to the knee, and we want a good set and flex to their hock, all right. Their upper skeleton, their shoulder blade, their hip, and their spine, we want their blade to be laid back on their body. We want their spine to be real loose and level on the drive. And we want a good, loose, flexible hip whenever they're out on the drive as well, okay. Look at these pictures, okay. We like this one's structure. When we want to look at their shoulder blade being laid back, we look at the point of their shoulder and the top of their shoulder and how that whole thing is configured. And we want that line from their point of their shoulder to the top of their shoulder to be laid back towards the rear of their body, okay. We want a good backward set to the knee. You see that there. All pigs are going to be a little round hipped, okay. But we want them as you know, as level as we can get them, okay, without messing up their structure, okay. We want a good set to their hock, all right. And we can look at these standing still and kind of get an idea of how they're going to move. So I think this one here on the left, I really like the angles to this one. I think that one, if we had a video of this one moving, that's probably going to move pretty good. It's going to be pretty flexible. The guy on the right here, now that'd be a little different. Looking at his structure, he's pretty straight in his blade. He's really straight in his knee and really straight in his hock. He's also really steep in his hip, okay. So I think this guy is probably going to, when he gets out on the drive, he's going to be pretty restricted, not going to be as flexible as we would like. All right, we'll see some examples here in this minute on video, differences in structure, but this is what we look for when they're standing still, okay? But we really want to watch and pay attention to when they get out and drive to see how flexible they are, how their top line is, and how their hip, how they just flex all of their joints and how soft and flexible they are on the drive. Okay, this is something that kind of goes along with structure, muscle, width. All of that has to do with, or this has to do with those. Okay, we want our pigs to be square on their feet and legs. All right, and you can see this guy here on the left. He does a good job, but just being really wide and square. All right, he comes out of his ham. His legs come out of his ham straight down to the ground. Okay, good and square. The guy here in the middle, not so much. He's starting to look like an upside down triangle, and that's not what we want. We don't want him to. We don't want him to be real narrow based. And like I mentioned earlier, you know, typically wide animals are heavy muscled animals, and narrow animals are not as heavy muscled. Well, this is one of those exceptions. Okay, this guy's pretty wide and heavy muscled. Got a lot of muscle in his ham, but he's pretty narrow based. Okay, so you know, typically wide equals muscle, but sometimes they don't. So always remember that. This guy, his legs come out of his ham and come close together. Okay, like an upside down triangle.
So they might.
And then we have
They'll fold him on his neck.
this. It's probably more common than any other, you know, or probably one of the most common issues that we find with, you know, squareness of their feet and legs. It's when these hogs get really big and heavyweight and have lots of muscle, they start bowing out in their hocks. And if you see that, his legs come down to his hock, and then his lower below his hocks start coming in together. Okay, that's not ideal. This one definitely probably affect the way that he moves and his flexibility and all. Plus, he's not square on those feet and legs. Okay? This one's probably not going to affect his flexibility. Okay, but definitely not square on his feet and legs. Right.
He wouldn't win the class.
The design, an eye appeal, or just how good looking they are. It's a combination of things. Okay, we want them to be tall fronted, level down their top, level hip, or as nearly level in their hip as we can get them. Okay, we want a clean jowl, clean underline, and we want them to be square on their feet and legs, square from the ground up. Right. What I mean by tall fronted, you can see this line running here. The way I explain it to my judging team is that we want them to look like they're walking up a hill when they're standing on level ground. All right. If you see sheep guys always putting their lambs in a shearing stand or on some type of stanchion before they take pictures of them, they do that because they want them to look tall fronted, good, clean chested, and tall fronted. And that's the same thing we want for our pigs. We want them to look, tall fronted, that underline to look like this number 1 line that's running here. Okay. You see some differences in the design of these two pigs. Okay. Pretty similar, but there's some differences. Okay. This one is really good design, good level top, clean jowl, clean underline. All right, pretty tall fronted. This one here, on the other hand, this one's a little lower fronted. You see, it looks like it's almost walking down a hill. It's a little waisty in his jowl and his neck. All right, and then it's pretty steep there in his hip. Okay, the hip's a little steep. All right.
He wants it to go.
So, took a little longer than I thought to get through that. So we're gonna move right along. If you remember the slide earlier with the pencil, okay, looks a lot, looks pretty similar to that. Okay, except now there's a pig in the middle of the screen. And there's a couple different questions over here. So I want you to now ask yourself these questions about this pig and then decide if this pig is good, if he's decent, or if he's bad. Okay, so you go down through the list. Is this pig heavy muscled and wide? We look at this view, the rear view and the top view. Just give you a hint. He looks pretty wide and he looks pretty heavy muscled all the way through. Okay. So then you'll go down through here and you'll ask yourself these questions. Is he lean? Is this pig lean?
Is he lean through?
Is he fat or is he lean? Is he heavyweight? I'll go ahead and say he looks pretty heavyweight to me. It's hard to tell from a picture, try to guess their weight in a picture, but to me he looks pretty heavy. Heavyweight. Body. Is he structurally correct? And is he good designed? And some of the answers that you could get from these questions is like, yeah, he's really heavy muscled, or he's light muscled, or he's not heavy muscled, or he's not light. He's just right in the middle. Okay, so ask yourself those questions, come up with your answers in your head, and then decide if this pig is good, decent, or bad. And then what I want you to do is go to the chat and type in what you've decided this pig is. Is this pig good, decent, or bad? And put it in the chat.
Is it good? Is it decent? Is it bad? Heavy muscled and wide. Let me turn my mute off so we can talk here.
You don't have to put your answers for each question in the chat. I just want to know what you think. Is this pig good, is he decent, or is he bad? And again, this is a market hog, not evaluating them as breeding. This is a breeding gilt. This is a market hog. All right, so what do you think in terms of a market hog? Is this one good, decent, or bad? Give you about 30 seconds to submit your answer, and then we'll talk about these questions and what I think this pig is. Okay. Oh, that's good. I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody that said he was bad, so that's good. Somebody said he was decent to good, or good to decent. Some decent. So we're almost split good and decent. Okay, it's good. That's really good. All right, so what I think, we'll go down through the list. We've already said that he's wide and heavy muscled. Okay, thought he's really heavy muscled, pretty wide. Is he lean? What do y'all think about how lean he is? Is he really lean, or is he really fat, or is he just kind of in the middle? From what we just talked about, you can put it in the chat, or you can say it out loud, whichever one you would prefer.
He's not as lean as I would like him to be, though.
Okay. Some say he's in the middle. In the middle. To me, I think he's pretty lean. I think he's really lean. You see a really good groove down his top. From the side, you can see his blade, elbow pocket, and then that shape to his ham there. I think he's, then from the rear, a good crease to the seam of his ham. Down the top, got a good crease and a good groove down his top. Lots of muscle shape. So I think he's pretty lean. I think he's really lean. All right. Uh-oh. Not going this way yet. Sorry about that. So is he heavyweight? We said he was. Just he looks pretty heavy. Like he's pretty heavyweight, or she is heavyweight. Big through the center body. Yeah, that's where I thought this pig could be better. Okay, his center body. We look at the top view. Center body's just not overly bold and pulled apart there to his center body. And then we look at this pig from the side, and he or she could be a little deeper and a little softer, a little more pliable there through his center body, a little softer in his flank. Okay, but I don't think it's bad. I think it could be better. I don't think it's good, but I don't think it's bad either. So I'm going to say he's just decent through his center body. What about structural correctness? What y'all think about how his joints and the angles to his joints? What do you think about this pig in regards to being structurally correct? You think it's think he or she is structurally correct, or you think it's bad structured? Somebody said it's good structured. Anybody else think it's bad structured, good structured? Okay. Anybody else? Good. Anybody think it's bad structured? Anybody think it's just okay structured? You know, we don't get to see them move, so we don't get to see the ultimate test of this one's structural correctness. Okay, but right here, just standing here, this one has a good set to its knee. Okay, shoulder looks pretty good. The hock looks pretty good. Good angle to all of its joints just standing still. So I think it's pretty good structured. Like I said, the ultimate test would be if, seeing it move, seeing its flexibility, see if it's restricted or anything. But just standing there, the angles of this one's joints look pretty good. Okay. Now, what about design and just the way this one looks? Is this a good looking pig or is it ugly? Good looking. So somebody said it was good looking. I think somebody said it's decent look. Good looking. Good. It's good design. Decent looking. Okay. That's good. I don't think, to me, I don't think it's a bad looking pig. Okay. Don't think it's bad looking at all. It is a little steep in its hip. Could be a little bit better there. Okay. I wish I had a picture of it with his head up to see if it was tall fronted or not. But, I think it's just, to me, looking at this picture, I'd say it's just a decent looking pig. Not bad at all, but not just one that really grabs your attention in terms of design and attractiveness. Okay. So we said he was heavy muscle, wide, and really lean, heavy weight. Could be better through his center body, but it's not bad. Looked good structured, and that it was okay design. All right. So to me, I think this one is a pretty good market hog. Okay, pretty good market hog because he's got everything that the most important things. This one has everything in terms of being or the most important ones. Okay, so I think this one would fall into the good category for me in terms of a market hog. All right. Are there any questions before we get started on our next thing, our next activity? Let's see here. Everybody give me a thumbs up if what is it? I think you go to your reactions or something on your screen there at the bottom and give me a little thumbs up emoji or whatever that is. So there you go. All right. All right, so what we're going to do now is that now that you've went through the whole process of looking at the pig, looking at that market hog, and asking yourself those questions, all right, we're going to actually put that into practice. Okay, we're going to look at these hogs on these videos, and I want you to ask yourself those same questions, and we'll walk through this first one together, and then you can do the rest by yourself. But if you have a notebook and a pencil in front of you, that's great. Make sure you use it. If you don't have one, I suggest find a piece of paper or a notebook really quick so you can jot down a few things. Okay. But we're going to do the same thing we just did. Okay. Same thing we just did for that one that was on the slides there. I want you to ask yourself those questions about this pig. Is he heavy muscled? You don't shout it out. Just ask them to yourself. Is this one heavy muscled? Is he lean? Is he wide? Heavy weight?
And that's number one. Okay,
this is a.
Look at its legs.
Is it big through its center body? Okay, all right. This is a good view to get Ask yourself if he's heavy muscled.
He's clean up through there.
Is he lean, wide, big through his center body,
Only thing wrong is
good structured, and is it good designed?
Let's see here. That
Ask yourself those questions.
there, that kind of goes.
When we watch them move, we want to see them pick up. We want to see them pick up their leg, bend their hock, and put it forward. We want to see them pick up their front leg, bend their knee, and set it forward. Okay. We want to see them walk freely, flexible, without any restriction. All right. We want to make sure their top line stays good and level. They're loose in their hip. Oops. Let's go back. We'll go back through. We'll watch number one more time, and then we'll move on to the other ones.
Kind of pulls in through there too. You see how he kind of comes in? He's not square.
All right, we'll go to pig number 2 now. Okay. Now that you've actually, let's go back really quick to pig number 1. Now that you've asked yourself all those questions, okay? Now that you've asked yourself everything that you need to ask yourself, now I want you to write down on your piece of paper. Don't say it out loud, but write down on your piece of paper or keep it in your head, whichever one you want to do. Is number 1 good? Is it decent? Or is it bad? Okay. Don't say it out loud. Just write it down. And we'll move on to pig number 2. We'll watch this video maybe once or twice, or maybe 3 times, and then we'll move on to pig number 3. But again, ask yourself those same questions. I'm not gonna. Hopefully you remember what those questions are. I'm not going to say them out loud right now. I want y'all to do it yourself. Well, sorry about that. Sorry about that. I didn't realize I switched to pig number 4. Still looking at pig number 2. All right, now that you've looked at pig number 2, I want you to write down pig number 2. Is he good, decent, or is he bad? Here's pig number 3. We're going to do the same thing. Let's look at him one more time, and then we'll move to pig number 4. One good thing I like about these videos is that it forces you to look at them one at a time, individually. Okay, people get in a lot of trouble at judging contests or whatever, judging practices, whatever, because they get comparative right off the bat. These videos make you look at them individually and evaluate them individually and decide if they're good, bad, or decent on their own merits, on their own right. I encourage you, if you're at a judging practice with your judging coach or at a judging contest, that you do the same that we're doing today. Look at them individually on their own. Don't start comparing them. Which one's wider than the other? Which one is, don't do that. Okay, here's pig number 4. Pause it real quick. Did y'all write down if pig number 3 was good, bad, or decent? If you didn't, make sure you write that down. Good, bad, or decent. Okay. Thumbs up. I see a thumbs up. That's good. All right. Pig number 4, do the same thing. Ask yourself those questions. Decide if pig number 4 is good, bad, or decent. We'll get them one more time. And then we'll look at all 4 of them together. Okay, I see some people say they're already done with their placing. They already have a placing, and that's really good because I was getting ready to say that before we go to the next video where all 4 of them are together. Okay. Whenever you're judging a class, either at practice or at a judging contest in this way, then you can already have a placing before you look at all 4 of them together. You can look at each, put blinders on, look at each animal individually, and then have it placed before you look at all 4 of them together. Okay. So if you have a placing in mind, I want you to go ahead and write it down. Okay. Go ahead and write it down. The only reason we need to really compare animals is if there's something really close. If there's something real close, then you compare the two, compare them, and then place them accordingly. Okay. So if you went through here and you've said there's 2 of them that are good, so 2 of them are good. I'm not saying that 2 of them are good, but I'm just saying if you did do that, 2 of them are good, then you compare them and you can figure out which one is better than the other. If you said that 2 of them were bad, then you can decide which one's worse, okay? Or if decent. If you have 2 of them that are decent, then you can decide which one needs to be placed over the other, okay? We're just going to look at this one really quick. Look at it really quick. And then we'll talk about it. After we look at this one, let's just say about 40 seconds, I want you to finalize your placing, and you can put it in the chat if you'd like to. You can say it out loud if you'd like to as well, whatever you feel like doing. But here in just a second, I want you to go ahead and write a placing down, put it in the chat, whatever you feel like doing. All right, does everybody have a placing? You don't have to type in the chat if you don't want to. You don't have to say it out loud if you don't want to. But I at least want you to have it wrote down, okay? And if you're completely wrong with my placing, then that's fine too. We're learning today. I just want you to have it wrote down, so when we start talking about it, you don't get lost. All right. And what I mean by placing, for the ones that are new, if this is your first day judging livestock, we're going to put whichever animal you think is the best, we're going to put it first. You write that number down first. Then just to the right of it, you're going to put the second best animal number there. Just to the right of that, you're going to put the third best number, and then the worst animal will be the last. If you look at the chat, there's some examples there. Okay, don't ever copy anybody's work either. That's the one thing I tell my teams all the time, because your neighbor or somebody else, if you see somebody's placing there in the chat, they might be completely wrong. You might be 100% right and they're completely wrong. Okay, so don't ever copy anybody's work. Always do your own work. All right. So let me look through here and see what kind of placings we have, and then we'll talk about them. 4213, 1324, 1342, 4312, 4213. Okay, 4213, 2413. All right. Got a little bit of everything, but I think for the most part, It's pretty good. Okay. We'll just talk about the one pig. How many people said this pig was good? Okay, you can give me a thumbs up if you said this pig was good. Give me a, what's the other reaction you need? Whatever the other reaction that you can make, if you think he's bad, give me that reaction. All right. So nobody thought he was bad. It's good. Okay. It's good. I don't think that's a bad pig. There's some things I really like about this pig. But to me, I just labeled him as decent. Okay. Just decent. Okay. This view right here, starting off the video, I really liked it. Okay. From the profile, from the side, this one is really nice. You could like a lot of things about him. He's really long bodied. He's pretty good designed, and he's pretty sound structured. He's pretty flexible. His angles are really good. All right. But we said we're going to start at the ground. Okay. Start at the ground, evaluating them. And that's where I first had some issues with this pig. Look at this, his rear legs. You know, think back to that slide that had we talked about squareness on their feet and legs and base width. Okay, this one's kind of like that middle one on that slide. So kind of like an upside down triangle. He's wider up top than he is at the ground. Okay, starting to come in at his base, getting a little narrow there at his base. He needs a little bit more shape there to his lower ham as well. Just to call him really heavy muscled, he needs some more shape. Okay, some more shape. He looks pretty lean, looks really lean actually. A good crease to the seam of his ham. And then we look at the top, we can see that groove running down his top. So that's good. And we see a good shape. We see his shoulder or his blade there, his hip and his ham, lots of shape. All right. So that one's pretty lean. All right. In terms of muscle, I think he's okay. I think he, like I said, he needs more width and more shape to his lower ham. Okay. But he's lean. He's okay in terms of muscle. He needs to be better in his lower ham. He's not very wide base and square, but he's good design. He's long body. He's flexible, sound, structured. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you said number 2 was a good pig. Got 1 thumbs up. Only 1 thumbs up for number 2 being a good. 2 thumbs up. Okay. Had 2 thumbs up for number 2 being a good pig. All right. Looked at number 2, and from the profile, forgot to mention about number 1. One thing about number 1, from the profile, I thought he needed to have some more center body to him. He's a little shallow. He's pretty shallow actually. Needs to be softer, more pliable in his center body. Doesn't really have that big center body that we like our market hogs to have. But we look at number 2, and he does have a really big center body. That was one thing I noticed from the very beginning, was that he had a big center body. Structure looked okay. Had some angle, some good set to his knee and his hog. Pretty level down his top. Okay. Then we look at him at the ground. Okay, we want to start at the ground. All right. Kind of shares a little bit of the same problems that number 1 has. He's wider up top than he is at the ground. He's coming in at his base, like that upside down triangle we looked at. Okay, but we start working our way up, and we see there's a lot more mass, a lot more hip, a lot more ham than we saw in number 1. Okay, not wanting to get comparative, but you don't have to see number 1 to know that 2 has a lot of muscle in his hip and ham. Okay. start working your way up, and you also see that we don't see a real sharp crease to the seam of his ham. So that's an indicator right there that he might be a little fat. Okay, we'll look at other places to finally decide if he's fat or not, but that's the first indicator that, you know, he might be a little fat, right? But he's got a lot of muscle. We'd like to see him square on his feet and legs. All right, we look down his top. Okay, we look down his top, and we start to see some of the things that we thought of, you know, he might be from the rear view in terms of fatness. Okay, we don't see the shape down his top that we want to see. He's getting a little bit smooth all the way through. So we can pretty confidently say this one's getting a little too fat. All right. Maybe not a little too fat, but he's fat. We can confidently say this one is fat. All right. Then we watch him move. Let's see if we can see him move. All right. See him picking up his back leg and moving, bending his hock. We can see him doing that in his front end. So, you know, in terms of structure, he's not too bad. He's good, level top, low hip, good, and good structure. All right. So I labeled that one as decent. Okay. Labeled him as decent because, you know, I'd love to see a lot more shape to him, muscle shape. He's getting a little fat. All right. Definitely like to see him square on those rear two legs. Okay. Then we look at number 3. All right. I always want you to start with good things when you're talking about an animal, no matter what it is. All right. But my first view of this pig was this one here, and I didn't see much that I liked. Okay. Just to be honest, didn't see much that I liked. He's low fronted. He's steep in his hip. He's really straight in his hock. Okay. So in terms of build and design and structure, I don't think this one is very good. All right. But we're going to start at the ground. All right. Start at the ground. If I can find, okay. Start at the ground. This guy is really wide based. Really wide based. We start working our way up. We don't really see a crease to the seam of his ham. And then we're really disappointed in his hip shape, his hip and ham shape, just pretty plain. Not a lot of shape of muscle, just not a lot of muscle there in general. Okay, pretty plain in terms of his hip and ham shape. Then we get up on top of him, and he's still really plain in his overall muscle shape. All right, he's almost got that opposite shape that we're looking for, you know, where that, remember back to that one slide where the pig was wider up front than he was in the rear. Okay, he's starting to get that shape. Okay, so just from a carcass value standpoint, should start not liking him. And then, like we said, his structure doesn't look very, very good. And then we set him, we make him drive, and we look at him walking on the drive and see how flexible he is. And we notice that he doesn't really pick his hock or his rear leg up and bend his hock. He just kind of swings it forward. He's kind of restricted in his hock. Okay, so design, structure, not so good. So I ended up labeling this one as bad. Okay, labeled him as bad. Then we're left with the number 4 pig, and, you know, looking at this one, first view. I wish the rear view was our first, or at the ground. A view of him at the ground was our first view, but we look at this one first, and you have to notice, you know, he's a little straight there in his rear too, a little straight in his hock. From the side, see he's got a really big center body. Okay, really big center body. We can see some shape and some turn to his ham. Okay, one that looks pretty powerful, pretty stout. We'll look at him from behind, look at him at the ground, and we notice that he's really wide base and really square, really wide base and square from the ground up. Tons of muscle there in his hip and his ham. Still has a good crease to the seam of his ham. All right. Then we look at the top side. We can still see a little bit of a groove. Not just a huge, big groove, not a deep ditch, but we can still see a groove. All right. Really wide, bold bladed, really wide top, really big hip. Okay. Tons of muscle, tons of width into that pig. Not the leanest, but he's not fat either. Okay. In terms of a design and structure, you know, watch him get out and move. He's not bad. He's not as bad as I thought he was going to be off of those rear two. He's still not good. Don't get me wrong. He's not good off of his rear two, but he's not horrible either. Okay. So he's really, from a design standpoint, could be a little better. Could be a little better in terms of structure. All right. Muscle though, really good. Really good. All right. So I started thinking this one, I thought he was pretty good. In terms of just the market hog fundamentals, he had a lot to offer. Okay, so now I'm left with, I have one that's bad, I have one that's good. So start thinking this one might win the class. Number 4 might win the class because he's the only good one that I said was in the class. This one, he was the only bad one in the class, so we'll go ahead and put him bottom. And then we're left with 1 and 2, all right? Differences in them. 1, he's leaner, he's longer bodied. 2, he's a lot better through his center body. He's got a lot more muscle in his hip and his ham. And he's a little bit stouter boned. Okay, you remember we were talking about the bone, the stoutness to their bone, okay, indicating width and muscle. Okay, he's a little bit stouter bone. Just got a little bit more muscle there in his hip and his ham. But a big thing, he's a lot better through his center body and the muscle shape that he has from behind. Okay, so I'd put 2 over 1. So I ended up placing it 4, 2, 1, and 3. So I think there's a 1, 4, 2, 1, and 3. So there's a few of you got it exactly right. All right. Are there any questions on this class? Any questions we want to talk about? If you have a question, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask it, or you can type it into the chat. Either one. Whichever you want to do. I'll give you a few more seconds to think about questions before we move on. Let's see, what is it going to say? So the reason I thought 1 was just decent was mainly his top and rear view. Okay, his rear view, he was a little narrow based. He's starting to get that upside down triangle look that we talked about that we don't want. Okay, he's a little plain there in his lower ham shape. And then his top view, we want to see his center body be a lot more pulled apart and a lot bigger. Okay, and also from the profile, as I said, he's getting a little, he's probably the shallowest bodied one in the class. We said he was shallow bodied, could be a little deeper, could be a little more pulled apart through his center body. But initial impression of him from the profile you could like, other than being a little shallow, he's long, really long bodied. He's good design and good structured. He just needs to be He needs to be a little bit wider based, have more shape to his lower ham, and center body needs to be better. That's why I thought one was just decent. Any other questions?
I did have a question after all. What
Okay.
cuts would you put them at?
So this class, I think 4. I think he wins kind of easy. So I'd cut it 4 on top. I think it's a little bit closer in the middle. So I'd probably cut it 3, 2 or 3. And then this pig, he's pretty bad. So I would cut it probably 6 on the bottom, 5 or 6 on the bottom. That one's pretty bad. The other 3 have some things you could really like about them. This one is just not very good. Just put it straightforward. He's not very good at all. All right. Any other questions? If we don't have any other questions, let me go back to this really quick. The thing about after we've talked about all of evaluating width and muscle and body volume and all of that, structural correctness, design, all of that in market hogs, evaluating all of those traits in breeding gilts are the same. We do it the same way. Okay, so we don't have to spend a whole lot of time talking about where we look for this and where we look for that. There's just a few differences with breeding gilts. Okay, this is what an ideal breeding gilt should look like or should have. These are the characteristics the ideal breeding gilt should have. It should be functional. Okay, I will go through this pretty quick and look at a few differences between breeding gilts and market hogs, and then we'll wrap everything up, and I'll answer any questions that you might have. But characteristics of the ideal breeding gilt. Okay, number 1, they need to be functional. Okay, this goes for any breeding female, well, not just female, any piece of breeding livestock. This is the most important thing, most important characteristic. They need to be functional. To be functional, they need to be structurally correct, and they need to have a big center body. Okay, those are the 2 things that determine if a breeding gilt is functional or not. So regardless if it's a heifer, sow, gilt, cow, doe, or a ewe, okay, all of our breeding livestock, bull, boar, buck, ram, all of them need to be functional, meaning they're structurally correct and big bodies. All right. Our ideal breeding gilt will also have a maternal look to her, have a maternal feature and look to them. They'll look like good mamas and not a market hog. All right. They need to be wide and stout. They need to have some skeletal width and stoutness to them. They need to have some growth to them, and then good design. All right. This down here is, I put this because when you go to a judging contest, you'll have what we call performance classes. Okay, that means there'll be 4 gilts in there, and they'll have a performance scenario, a set of performance data with a scenario about what these gilts are going to be selected for. Okay, and so we stick to this list unless our performance scenario tells us to do otherwise. Okay, and then that's a whole lot, another can of worms that we're not going to open today, but just know that there's performance data, performance scenarios that might change this list for you just a little bit. All right. So what do I mean by a maternal look or maternal features versus terminal features? Terminal pretty much just means, you know, terminal features are them looking like a market hog or a boar or something like that. Okay, we don't want our gilts to look like that. You know, we want to have a maternal feature, maternal look to them. The gilt on the left, really good maternal characteristics to this one. Okay, the one on the right, there's a lot more muscle, a lot more expression. Looks like a market hog. Okay, that's ones that has some terminal characteristics to it. Okay, we don't want our sows and our gilts to look like this. Okay, not to mention really straight shouldered, really straight in its knee, and really straight in its hock. All right, we want our gilts to have a nice maternal feature to them. And then the way the maternal characteristics of each breed is different. Okay, our white breeds are a little bit different than our color breed. Okay, the maternal features of those are a little bit different. Okay, so just know that breed has some things to do with it. All right. One thing that we look at in our breeding gilts that we don't care about in our market hogs are the underline. Okay. Does anybody know what a 7 and 7 underline is? Anybody ever heard that term? 7 and 7 underline means that we want 7 teats on her left side and we want 7 teats on her right side. Okay. And then we want their teats to be refined and we want them to be evenly spaced. Okay. Think about when we talk about refinement, think about your pinky versus your thumb. Okay. Everybody look at your pinky and then look at your thumb. That's the difference. Your pinky is refined. Your thumb is coarse and blunt. All right.
Okay.
That's what we want their underline, their teats to look like. And then we want a good, even teat spacing. All right. If we took a tape measure and we measured from this teat to the next, we want them to measure the same or as close to the same as we get them. Okay. Want them evenly spaced. You can see the difference. The two gilts, the underlines on the right side are pretty evenly spaced. Okay. The one up top on the right, not as evenly spaced as the one on the bottom. Okay. But still pretty good. The two on the left, now that's another story. Okay. This gilt on the upper left, she's got her teats scattered out all across her underline. All right. So this is not what we want. The ones on the left, okay, not what we want. The ones on the right, those are close to ideal. Okay. So we'll wrap it up there. Again, when we're talking about our breeding gilts, it's when we're looking for or we're evaluating for structural correctness in our breeding gilts, we evaluate them the same as we do market hogs, except we put more emphasis on structural correctness. Okay, body volume, same thing. We look through their center body, depth, width, all of that is the same in our breeding gilts, except it's a lot more important to us. Okay, skeletal width and stoutness, same thing. All right, as in market hogs, except not as important. All right, and then the maternal characteristics is a big part of effectively evaluating breeding gilts. All right, are there any questions? I will answer try to answer any questions you have. Hopefully you've learned something about not only judging market hogs and breeding gilts, but just livestock judging in general. Okay, if you haven't learned anything, just or haven't learned anything, just remember the pencil. Okay, remember the pencil. That's the basics of evaluating really anything that you want to. Okay, remember the picture or the picture of the pencil. Okay, and those questions. All right, remember that. Okay, and then just substitute the pencil for a pig or for a goat or a lamb or a steer or a heifer, whatever it is that you're evaluating. Okay, remember the pencil, and then whatever class that you're looking at, just substitute it for that given animal. All right. Like I said, I'll try to get these, or I will get these to Brent and Rachel, so hopefully get them out to you. So you'll have these notes. And if you ever have any questions, you don't want to ask them right now, feel free to contact me anytime. All right. But if you have any questions right now, definitely either just unmute yourself and yell them out, or type them into the chat. Well, if there's not any questions, that's about all I have for you today. Give about a couple more seconds if anybody's trying to type something or. I'm going to put my email address in the chat in case anybody wants to contact me. Oh yeah, not a problem, me. Thank y'all for joining today. Hopefully you learned something. Again, my email is there in the chat if you want to write that down real quick or whatever, in case you ever want to contact me or have any questions. Is there any way, let's see. So is everybody still on here? If you have any questions, go ahead and shout them out. If not, I will shut everything down, and y'all have a good day.